The Transformation of California, 1850 to the present day. The Gold Rush and the Birth of a New Society, 1850 to 1870. California entered the Union during one of the most explosive social experiments in American history. The gold rush didn't just bring miners, it brought the world. In a few short years, tens of thousands of immigrants arrived by ship and wagon. Americans from the East, Chinese laborers, Chilean prospectors, and European adventurers chasing fortune. The population boom created instant cities, chaotic, lawless, and alive. San Francisco, once a quiet port, became a roaring metropolis of saloons, gambling dens, and makeshift businesses. It was a place of unimaginable opportunity and equally unimaginable loss. Men died from disease, duels, or disasters in the mines. But the gold rush also built the foundation for California's economy. Mining profits funded banks, shipping companies, and railroads. Merchants like Levi Strauss, who supplied sturdy denim trousers to miners, became millionaires. Yet, amid the frenzy, injustice festered. California's early government enacted the Foreign Miners Tax, targeting non-white miners, especially Chinese immigrants and Latin Americans. Anti-indigenous violence escalated into open genocide. Native populations fell by more than 80% between 1848 and 1870 through massacres, starvation, and forced labor. Still, by the end of the 1860s, California was connected to the rest of the nation. The Transcontinental Railroad, completed in 1869, linked Sacramento to Omaha, uniting the Pacific with the Atlantic. California was no longer an isolated frontier. It was now America's western engine. Railroads, ranches, and immigration, 1870 to 1900. After the gold faded, California turned to the land. Its fertile valleys became one of the richest agricultural regions in the world. Farmers and ranchers grew wheat, grapes, citrus, and vegetables year-round, fueled by irrigation and sunshine. The Central Valley became the breadbasket of the nation, while the Santa Clara Valley, long before it became Silicon Valley, blossomed with orchards and vineyards. Immigration continued to shape California's identity. The Chinese, who had helped build the railroads, faced growing hostility. In 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act, the first major U.S. law restricting immigration based on race, specifically targeted them. Despite persecution, Chinese communities persisted, building Chinatowns in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Sacramento. Meanwhile, Mexican laborers crossed the border for seasonal work, establishing communities that would become essential to California's agricultural success. Japanese immigrants arrived later in the 1890s, becoming expert farmers despite facing discrimination and land ownership restrictions. By the dawn of the 20th century, California had become a melting pot of labor and culture, though not yet a land of equality. It was a state of extremes, booming industries and deep prejudice, natural beauty and violent exclusion. Still, the seeds were sown for California's future, a society defined not by a single people, but by waves of newcomers, each reshaping the land in their image. The rise of the modern West, oil, film, and urban dreams, 1900 to 1945. The new century brought California into the modern age. In 1892, oil was discovered in Los Angeles, and by the early 1900s, the city was one of the world's leading oil producers. The wealth from oil, combined with new rail lines and ports, transformed Southern California from a dusty region into a booming urban empire. Then came the industry that would define California forever: Hollywood. By the 1910s, filmmakers from the East Coast fled to California to escape patent restrictions and take advantage of its year-round sunshine and diverse landscapes. Hollywood's rise was meteoric. Studios like Warner Brothers, Paramount, and MGM turned Los Angeles into the global capital of cinema. Movies projected California's dream onto the world: sunshine, freedom, beauty, reinvention. It was an image both real and mythic. Behind the glamour, the state still faced inequality, segregated housing, anti-Asian laws, and the exploitation of migrant workers. During the Great Depression, thousands of Dust Bowl refugees, Okies, poured into California seeking work. John Steinbeck immortalized their suffering in The Grapes of Wrath, exposing the harsh realities behind the Golden State's promise. By World War II, California accelerated its transformation again. The state became a war machine. Shipyards in San Francisco and Oakland, aircraft factories in Los Angeles, and naval bases in San Diego employed millions. Women and minorities entered the workforce, reshaping gender and racial roles. But prejudice persisted. In 1942, after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. government ordered the internment of more than 120,000 Japanese Americans, most of them from California. They were imprisoned in remote camps, their homes, farms, and businesses stolen or destroyed. This remains one of the darkest chapters in California's history. But by 1945, California stood at the center of American power, rich, industrialized, and full of returning soldiers ready to build new lives. Post-war prosperity and social revolution, 1945 to 1970. After World War II, California exploded into prosperity. Suburbs spread across Los Angeles and the Bay Area. The GI Bill fueled home ownership, and the automobile became king. Freeways stitched the state together, creating a new car-centered culture of drive-ins, beaches, and endless mobility. The University of California system expanded, becoming a world leader in education and research. Aerospace boomed in Southern California with companies like Lockheed and Douglas shaping the Cold War. Meanwhile, agriculture grew more mechanized, powered by dams and aqueducts that diverted rivers hundreds of miles to feed cities and farms. But California's sunshine masked deep divisions. The civil rights era hit hard in the 1960s. African Americans, many of whom had migrated west for wartime jobs, faced housing segregation and police brutality. The Watts riots of 1965 in Los Angeles exposed the explosive racial inequality behind the California dream. At the same time, San Francisco became the heart of counterculture. In the 1960s, the city's Haight-Ashbury district birthed the Summer of Love, the hippie movement, and protest against the Vietnam War. Music, art, and activism collided in a revolution of youth and freedom. California became a mirror of America itself, its dreams and its unrest, its progress and its pain. Silicon, Diversity, and the Power of the Pacific, 1970 to 2000. By the 1970s, a new kind of gold emerged, not from the ground, but from circuits and code. In the orchards of the Santa Clara Valley, engineers and entrepreneurs began building computers in garages. What started with Fairchild Semiconductor, Intel, and two young dreamers named Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak grew into Silicon Valley, the epicenter of the digital revolution. Meanwhile, California's population surged past 30 million. Immigration reshaped its culture once again. Waves of newcomers arrived from Mexico, the Philippines, Vietnam, Korea, and India, transforming cities into global mosaics. By the 1990s, no single ethnic group held a majority. California was both the dream and the dilemma of America. Innovative, diverse, and immensely wealthy, yet struggling with inequality and environmental strain. The environmental movement, inspired by disasters like the 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill, found its voice in California, leading to the first major environmental protection laws in the nation. Politically, the state swung between conservatism and liberalism. Figures like Ronald Reagan, once governor of California, carried a message of conservative optimism to the White House, while cities like San Francisco and Berkeley became symbols of progressive activism. By the end of the 20th century, California was the dream and the dilemma of America. Innovative, diverse, and immensely wealthy, yet struggling with inequality and environmental strain. Modern California. Challenges and leadership in the 21st century, 2000 present. In the 21st century, California stands as the fifth largest economy in the world, ahead of most nations. Its influence extends from Silicon Valley's technology giants to Hollywood's cultural power, from agricultural exports feeding the globe to climate policies shaping the planet's future. But with great success comes immense challenge. California faces housing shortages, income inequality, and homelessness in its urban centers. The dream of the 1950s suburban life has become unaffordable for many. Wildfires, fueled by climate change, now ravage the state each summer. Drought threatens its farmlands, and the cost of living drives working families inland or out of the state altogether. Yet California continues to lead. It remains the laboratory of American innovation, pioneering electric cars, renewable energy, and digital technology. Its universities, from Stanford to UC Berkeley, shape global science and policy. Its diverse population, now more than 40 million people, speaks over 200 languages and embodies the future of multicultural America. Culturally, California still defines the global imagination. Hollywood remains the storytelling heart of the world. Silicon Valley writes its code. Los Angeles produces its music, and San Francisco shapes its ideals. Politically, California has become a progressive stronghold, often setting trends later adopted nationwide, from environmental protection to LGBTQ+ rights to data privacy laws. It also stands at the front lines of climate action, passing ambitious goals to reach carbon neutrality and preserve biodiversity. But perhaps the greatest story of modern California is resilience. From earthquakes and wildfires to economic booms and crashes, the state has always been a place of reinvention. It is still, in spirit, a frontier, not of geography, but of ideas. California's role and necessity today. In today's United States, California is not just another state. It is an engine of the nation's future. Economically, it contributes nearly 15% of the entire U.S. GDP, leading in technology, agriculture, entertainment, and green energy. Culturally, it sets global trends in film, design, food, and digital life. Demographically, it represents the America of tomorrow, diverse, globalized, and deeply interconnected. Environmentally, it is both victim and pioneer, suffering the worst effects of climate change while leading the world in solutions. California's necessity lies in its contradictions. It is both the land of Silicon Valley billionaires and immigrant farm workers, both paradise and peril. It embodies the hope that progress, despite its costs, can still push humanity forward. From the Chumash and Ojalón, who first walked its valleys, to the Spanish friars, the California rancheros, the gold rush pioneers, the dreamers of Hollywood, and the engineers of Silicon Valley, California's story has always been one of reinvention. It is still, in spirit, a frontier, not of geography, but of ideas. Conclusion: the eternal dream. California is more than a state. It is an idea that people can come from anywhere, start with nothing, and build something extraordinary. An idea that the edge of the continent is not the end, but the beginning. Yet beneath the golden light and promise, California's story is also one of loss, of the lands taken from its first peoples, of the ecosystems altered forever, of the inequalities that shadow its progress. And still, the dream endures. California remains the beating heart of American imagination, a place where history and future collide, where the horizon is always waiting, and where the world still comes to believe that tomorrow can be better than today.